Help support our coverage with a free account on Privacy, the service that keeps you protected when shopping online. Get $5 to try it now by using promo code QZZ2J.
How are you, sir? Good.
How about you, Dan?
I'm Don Baine, the Gadget Professor, and I'm very happy to see you. Now your company is Aerleum.
Correct.
What do you do? I have no idea.
We make fuels out of air. So
Okay, you make fuel out of air.
yeah, correct.
I don't even know where to begin. How do you make fuel and what kind of fuel out of air?
So how to make it is actually we capture carbon dioxide from the air, and we have a one-step process to transform that carbon dioxide into a final fuel. And today we make a fuel called methanol, which is a synthetic fuel that can replace diesel for in the maritime, the aviation industry, and others.
Methane?
Methanol,
Methanol, two different things.
two different things.
How much methanol do you extract from X amount of air?
So we need like 1.4 ton of CO2 from the air.
It's nice because you have an unlimited supply. You don't have to pay anything for the air. The air is free.
You got it.
Unless they could figure out a way to tax it, and they will.
You think so?
I think so. I think so. The United States will figure out a way for how many times you breathe, how much it's going to cost for them to allow you to breathe the air. If it can be taxed, believe me, the United States will figure it out.
Especially if it's clean after we have cleaned it out.
Oh, that costs more.
Yeah.
That costs more. You have to pay more for the cleaner than dirtier.
Correct.
All right, let's continue.
Yeah. So basically, we have invented a new process that is able to do direct air capture. So we really take the air on a specific material, and once the air passes through that material, only the CO2 will fix to the material, and then we have to introduce.
Is that a gas? I mean,
it's kind of like looking like a very like a sponge, like a very porous sponge that is solid, and that is placed inside a reactor. And that reactor will have air being circulated inside, and then the CO2 will fix to the material inside the little pores, inside the little holes. And once you have the CO2 inside, we'll make it react at the surface of the material. So then we just collect the fuel, and we can distribute it to the final customer.
That's quite interesting. How much energy and how is that energy delivered so that is this going to be a consumer device or this is an industrial device? Who's going to use the energy that you create? What kind of energy are you creating? I understand it's methanol, but as a consumer, I don't use that. I don't think.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not in a final form, meaning that, for example, in your shirt, you have some methanol probably because you use methanol in the chemical industry to make fibers on other products that are helpful then to make shirts or whatever. But our end goal is to actually have methanol being used as a fuel, so an alternative fuel. For example, you can replace diesel in your car, so it can become a consumer product at the end, meaning that you will.
Wouldn't that be cool?
That will be super cool.
Wow.
To have really small kind of autonomous station, gas station that you can refill with methanol, use it for your car.
So the cost of that, I would imagine, would be huge. I mean, a lot lower than we're paying now for petrol.
That's the goal will be to be at price parity with fossil fuels. So we wanted to be at the same cost, and that is like a big challenge for the industry, and we'll be the first one to achieve that.
Why are you setting your costs based on gasoline when you're making something that's cheaper? I don't know what what's involved in the process or the mechanics of doing that, but why wouldn't you set your own gauge for what it's worth? Rather, if petrol goes up, $1 a gallon. U.S. Why would you raise your price $1 a gallon?
It's
for profit?
Not. I mean, we need to be a profitable company, so for sure we'll make some profits out of it. But the really important thing for us is that today like all the technologies out there that are trying to do that cost 5 to 7 times more than the current fuels that we have. And our promise is to actually get to price parity. So that's already a big challenge to go from being 5 to 7 times higher to just price parity. And we have...
Well, you're not even making price parity based on what you're saying to me. The math in my head... I'm not giving you a hard time. Yeah. I got to ask these questions.
Yeah, you do. And it's also because, like,
you're losing money, not to interrupt you. I mean, if it's 7 times X, and then you're going to keep at parity, which is down at 2, and you're at 7, you're losing money.
But will you pay 7 times more to get your fuel for the car?
I do it every day.
Yeah.
Every day I go to get gas, the price goes up, up, up.
But not 7 times. You can
Not
have,
7,
yeah,
no.
yeah. So that's the goal. For us, we really want to have, like, for the final consumer, we want to have no financial impact, but you can use a fuel that is 90% less, like you emit 90% less CO2 when you burn it as a fuel.
Yeah, it's environmentally a lot cleaner and safer for
Yeah.
the air, and we've had several people here that make products to clean the air, and we're all for that.
Yeah.
Now, who came up with this idea?
So we are 2 co-founders. I'm the current CEO. My co-founder is the CTO. He actually made a PhD from the French Institute of Petroleum on a very similar topic. And together we had really this idea on disrupting the value chain around carbon capture and utilization.
How long did it take you to bring this concept, this idea to real world?
So about 2 years in stealth mode, and we officially incorporated the company in June 23. So until now, so almost 4 years to get a proof of concept. So now we are making, as we speak now, we are making methanol in our lab from air. So we have a fuel being made right now. And we just raised $6 million in seed round last year, and now we are scaling operations to build bigger units and then to go towards larger ones.
That is insane. What
That
a
is cool.
story. I mean, good for you. What a story.
Thank you.
Wow. When do you anticipate having a product that you'll be able to sell and people will, companies will use it?
That's the important thing. To have a product in this game, in this industry, you need to make very large volumes. So you need to produce a lot.
I can't imagine how you could scale that up.
Yeah.
As you know better than I, but in a small lab, it's one thing. But on my brother is a scientist in the medical world,
Yeah.
very well known. I don't know how, but he's a smart kid. And he used to say one of the toughest things, because he would oversee medicines being made and test the efficacy of it. But he always would say, he said, I got to tell you, we have results in a lab for medical, medicines. And he said, it works great stats. It works, but he said, but when you take that and you scale it up, he said, forget that. It's a whole different world.
Yeah.
And the same thing as what you're telling me.
Not the same, because we have a different path to scale. Because you
Okay.
have 2 paths. Either you have bigger equipments, so you have to change kind of the size on the dimensioning of your
Does it
equipment.
scale up?
So that's the scale up. But what we do is a number up. So meaning that we already have the final design of our systems, and then we add up the number of systems together, so we kind of stack them.
So it's like parallel?
Correct. So the goal for us in these first years was really to get the science proven inside one unit, inside one system, and now the goal is to make them all operate together in parallel. So that's kind of the
Have
number.
you gone from 1 to and meant 2x, and have you gone to 3x?
Yeah, we've gone from 1 to 16 actually now.
16?
16 times.
And
16.
And it's scaled up equilaterally across the 16 times.
Even better actually, because every time you iterate, you change kind of the process to make it more energy efficient on all of the other things. And now we are freezing the design of that system. And once we have the design that is totally frozen, we can then actually have that number up and have the parallel.
That's quite interesting.
Yeah.
You're really onto something huge.
We hope so.
Huge.
Yeah.
How long do you anticipate until you're ready to say, okay, here's our first system?
So we'd like to have that in 2 years from now.
Really?
And once we have this one, then we'll like to raise a massive round so we can build a very large facility.
You should be able to do that overnight. I mean, based on what I'm hearing you say, this is world-changing. I mean,
That
it
could
really
be.
is.
Yeah. So we have in these 2 years to have that first system up and running and the way we would like to, and then that could be life-changing.
All right, another question for you, and I've always wondered this. You've invented a process, if you will, and I would imagine it's patented.
Yeah,
okay.
correct.
How and who would you contact to actually build that equipment, which is kind of out of your skill set, because you're not everything. You need. How do you go about that next step?
So the good thing is, once you imagine that kind of technology, you have to think about the entire value chain. So who will make the reactors, who will make the materials.
That's what I'm asking, yeah.
So what we have done is that, like really from the front-end design, like once we have decided to design the system, we used whatever was the most available on the market. So we took whatever was existing on the market, and we made it fit.
So you actually experimented and put these pieces together yourself, you procure them?
Yep.
Really?
Correct. Yeah.
So you have built them yourself, essentially?
Yeah.
So now you just need, but the next step is to,
you got it.
I know, but the next step is to find someone who can build a big boy.
Correct.
Wow.
Correct. So that's
was very unusual, I would think, to be the inventor of the concept and the process, to build the base model, and now you're going to scale that up 16 times.
Correct. So now we know we have the subcontractors, we have the suppliers, we have our patented process, we have our know-how on the secret sauce inside. So we have all the pieces to make it work. Now we have to prove that that system in 2 years from now is up and running, that has the right cost, the right energy requirements, and once we have that, then we raise a massive round and go up.
I'm fascinated by your product, and I commend you on your persistence.
Yeah.
And wow.
Thank you.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Awesome.
You must come back, because I got to see where this is going. It's a really cool idea.
Yeah, I would love to.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you, Dane.
Thank you for coming on.
Thanks a lot.
I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
But I don't know. I think you're not gonna need luck. You know what you're doing. You know you're focused. You know where you're gonna be. Good for you.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you.
Good luck.
The Tech Podcast Network's CES 2025 coverage is executive produced by Adam Barker. Technical director is Kirk Corliss. Associate producers are Nancy Ertz, Tracy Ingram, Xerxes Goddard, Brandy Jackson, and Aviva Cram. Voiceover by Aaron Hurst. Our hosts are Marlo Anderson, Don Baine, and Scott Ertz. Studio and equipment are provided by PLUGHITZ Productions. The TPN studio executive is Todd Cochran. This has been a Tech Podcast Network production, copyright 2025.